everybody. Happy spring. Happy end of the first quarter of the year. I can't believe it that we're literally days away from Q1 just being in the books and starting April, which I always love new beginnings because it just helps me focus and recenter. And I think that is awesome, especially for the conversation that we're having today. Thank you so much, Arivee Vargas, for being with us, for being our guest today. I'm just so excited and so much to talk about in this exciting topic of career transitions and inflection points, and how do we go about this? I remember that my parents and other people that I saw when I was growing up, it was like a linear, right, where they started, like that's where they stayed, and that's what I thought was going to be my life. Like wherever I started, that's where I was going to basically grow old and retire. And today that is not the case. It feels like more often than not we are like the careers go like this and like this, and it's anything but a straight line. And on the one hand, it's fun for some of us because we get to do new things, but on the other hand, it creates a lot of stress and anxiety and questioning on how do I navigate through these transitions and not go crazy, from doing it. How do I navigate the stress and the anxiety? And how do I know where I'm going and make it worthwhile and maybe not make a decision that I'm going to regret down the line, right? And so there's all these other fears. And I know that you have a framework that you've also used that we're going to tap into. But this is the exciting topic that we have for today. And welcome for being here in this space with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this conversation. So thank you.
I know it's a passion of yours, son. We get very...
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about, you and why this is such a passionate project for you. And has this been something that you've experienced in your own way?
Yes. So I am a litigator by training. So I'm first generation. So my parents are from the Dominican Republic. I was born and raised here. I always say I grew up biculturally because I have an American culture with some values I love, some values I do not love. And then I have this Dominican culture, some values I love, some values I'm like, let's be more modern people. So I always view myself as someone who grew up very bicultural in language, in like costumbre and all the different things that we think of when we think of culture. And part of the value for me growing up first generation was the value of work ethic, the value of family, the value of perseverance, and the value of focusing on the things that are most important to you and sacrificing for those things. So for my parents, it was financial stability and security, making sure my sister and I were safe and had the best education they could provide within the limitations of their own resources, right? And so for me, growing up, I thought I was going to be a lawyer starting when I was about 11 or 12. There was no example around me of that, which is so common, right? We're not exposed to too much. But I remember going to court with my father when he was actually working in the courthouse. And he would let me sit in the courtrooms and watch attorneys present to the judge. And I remember looking at these attorneys. These are assistant district attorneys. These are attorneys that just work in local courthouses, like in the city, in your town, very local attorneys. And I just remember feeling like, oh, that looks really cool. Literally, that's all I thought. That looks really cool. Wow, they have a lot of say. They have power. They have authority. They are smart. And most of them didn't look like me, honestly. They really didn't. But there was something about that was really appealing to me. And I also watch Law and Order. Again, you're a child. You're dreaming, you're imagining, you're latching on to things that seem interesting to you. And that's what I did. I attached myself to that dream of being a lawyer. And I worked tirelessly to get there. So I went to college, I went to law school. I was at a law firm, two large law firms, had two federal clerkships. And then I had my son, my first child. He's now 9. I have 3 total, but I had him in the midst of me being, I was a more senior associate at that time at the law firm. And what happened to me was that I realized in having him and then being blessed to have maternity leave, because I know a lot of women don't have paid maternity leave, which needs to change, but I was fortunate enough to have paid maternity leave. And during that time, what happened was my primary source of my identity, which was working very hard, proving my value, proving I'm smart, proving I'm good enough, because throughout my life, I've had to do that. When I went to high school, I was behind in certain subjects. I had to catch up. Like I was constantly against this belief that other people had of me, which they expressed, that I may not get to where I want to go. I mean, my college guidance counselor straight up said I would not get into certain schools I applied to. Like these are people who told, these aren't just thoughts I had. This is what actually happened to me. And constantly using that as fuel all of my life to push myself. And then when I was away from work and away from what gave me a sense of worth in many ways and validation, it basically like changed my life, because I didn't know who I was without my work and me needing to prove it to others and prove my worthiness, proving that I deserve to be in those spaces where we do not really occupy, honestly. And it was a difficult time. Obviously, as a first time mother, your whole identity shifts because now you are responsible for this little baby you have to keep alive and you want them to thrive. And I had to do a lot of introspection on who I was and what did it mean to me to work hard? Like, what did I see growing? My parents worked really hard. They worked and they took care of us. Those were their priorities, right? What did it mean to work hard? What meaning did I ascribe to it? What meaning did I ascribe to work? How did I make work my entire life? And why did I give so much power away to work? And to what others thought of me at work? Like, what was going on there? And so for me, that was my first, I would say, major career inflection point, was when I had my first child, and I really had to think deeply about how I wanted to live and work and who I really was in the context of my life, not just in my work. And so that's why I'm so passionate about career inflection points and just inflection points and identity shifts, because I didn't do that just once. I actually did that then. And then I left the law firm a few years later, right before I would have been up for partner within a year, but I left instead, went in-house. And then I was in-house for a while and shifted again into leadership development and executive coaching. So left the law behind completely years later. So been through multiple inflection points. And part of why I feel so passionate about this is I do believe it's all about aligning what's inside with what you're doing outside. And that includes your work. I know a lot of people say that you don't have to love your job. I understand that advice. I do think you need to feel connected to your job in some way. I believe you have to have that. And to me, that's all about aligning your values, your priorities, how you want to live, what is most important to you, how you want to feel at work with what you're actually doing for work.
I love so many things that you've said. And did I just listen to an echo of myself?
No,
Sometimes I hear an echo.
I can.
Um, so there's so many important things that you just said that I want to highlight before moving on to like piggyback on the end of what you said. This piece of people telling us that we can't do something, or that we're not going to be able to do something, either because of who we are from a gender perspective, from a race perspective, from an ethnicity, from a background, lived experience, whatever it is, right? It's like don't even think about it. Like, I'm a chemical engineer, or I studied chemical engineering actually. And like you, like I was told first day at school, in college, it's like, why are you even here and spending your money on that if you're not going to graduate? This is not a career for women. And that was many, many decades ago. But unfortunately, it continues to happen to this day with women in STEM, right? That it's like, this is not something for you or other male dominated industries. So consistently pushing back, and that hinders our beliefs. So I love that you say that you used it as a fuel. I used it as a fuel as well to drive myself forward, but the majority do not, and I can't find how to use it as a fuel because they don't have that representation or that role model or that somebody that can help them, you know, figure out how to use it as a fuel. And that becomes critically important in this process, being able to tap into those role models, or that people, that support system, right, that will help you. And the other thing that I want to highlight from what you said is this balancing between what's inside and what's outside. I think once you find and you recognize and it's clear what's inside, it's easier. But I
Yes.
remember a moment in my career, and it was for 5 years, and I share it in my keynotes, right? For 5 years, I did not know what was inside. Like,
Yes.
I had no idea. And there wasn't a question that I hated more than people asking me, well, what is it that you want to do? And I was like, don't situation. Right. So that is something that you know, it's easy said, but
Yeah.
it's not that easy to do, especially when you're in that inflection point,
Mm.
because there's so many options, so many things, so many you know, inner thoughts, so many fears. So how do you have you navigated, and how do you recognize between these societal expectations, external pressures, you can, you can't, you should, you shouldn't, and then the inner kind of pressures and, you know, things, thoughts that happen in your mind? How do you find that balance? How do you overcome this very daunting process?
Eliana, I'm so glad you're asking this question because this is so important. So many people come to me and they say, I just don't know what I want. Okay. And they, by the way, they have the receipts, they have the credentials, they have they have
Did
checked
I lose
boxes.
you? Did I go off?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Are we here? Are we in lost in cyberspace? Oh, there we go. There,
Eliana,
we're back.
you can hear me. Okay. I am
Yes,
so
there, we're
glad
back.
I cut out. I am so glad that you asked this question because it is what so many women will come to me and ask, and they'll say, I don't know what I want. I'm at this point where I know something is off. I know something is off. And that's how they describe it. And what I always say, and what we always start with, is an assessment of how you're doing in the different areas of your life. Like, where do you feel like you are? It feels really great. It feels amazing. And where do you feel like this needs a lot of work? I'm not doing what I feel like I should be doing in this area for me. And then we really move into for people to get a lot of clarity. You can't just sit in a room by yourself and just like think. Like, that clarity is not an epiphany that comes to us. We get clarity through doing something, through talking to someone, doing a written exercise, writing. It comes through action. So what I always have people do is a values exercise on what are my top 3 to 5 values in my life. And I also have them do a strengths exercise. It's the VIA. You can do it. Anyone can do it for free. It's called the VIA, VIA, character strengths exercise. And it is based on research that when you are exercising your strengths, you will feel more like yourself and you will notice it. You will feel more joyful. You will be happier. It's based on positive psychology research. I have them do that exercise. You typically see values and strengths align, like they themselves will align. And then you're like, oh, part of the reason why I feel like something's off at work is because I'm not exercising this top strength and I'm not able to exercise this top value. Oh, that makes some more sense to me, right? Making sense of what's in your brain is really important for a lot of people, right? And then we talk about purpose. So, Ileana, some people don't have a life purpose or they feel like they don't have one. I feel like I have one, but some people are like, that life purpose stuff is overwhelming to me. So we go into, okay, but what is the purpose of your job, for example? Like, what is the reason why you work? So is it to provide for your family? Like, what we have to get very specific about what serves what purpose in your life. And then that provides a lot of clarity just in terms of what's going on inside, because that allows us to then decide, okay, what am I going to explore further? I always tell people the best thing you can do is get super curious about what bothers you, what upsets you, what angers you, because that is going to signal to you what your values are, what you care about, what you don't care about, what would make you happier, or basically, more unhappy. And that's part of the activate part of my framework, right, Ileana? That's the activate part where it's strengths, values, purpose, to get some clarity around that. And then the assessment part I mentioned was the assess part of the framework. But then you have to figure out what do I imagine for my life? You do have to be able to dream in some way. We're so stuck in the past, Ileana. We're so stuck in the things that so and so said to us in 10th grade, and the person the professor that told us we wouldn't be anything in college, or we're so stuck in those stories that we don't give ourselves the freedom to say, okay, if I could wave a magic wand, even though our brains are wired to not imagine in that way, what could I want? What could I have if resources were not limited to me? What could I do? And so often we resist that exercise because our brains are like, this is dumb. This doesn't make any sense. It's not realistic, but we have to stretch to do that. And you made a point of how career inflection points can bring about a lot of stress and anxiety. And it's like a very simple reason why that happens. Our brains love certainty. They love comfort and what is familiar. And when we start thinking of other paths, our brains are like, why are you doing that? That is not where we're going, because you're fine right here. Stay comfortable. It's better the devil that you know. Like, your brain is going to tell you that because it knows the past. It doesn't know the future. And that's all based in science. We know that. So the more aware you can be that your brain is starting to do that thing it does, where it's scaring you to stay where you are, you can say, oh, that's like every brain does that. Okay, I got that. I know that's fear. I understand that. And I'm still going to explore something further and stretch my brain so it understands it's okay. You don't have to be scared. This is the path I'm on, and I'm exploring it. I think we have to change the language we use for what we're doing. Instead of saying, okay, it's a career change I'm looking for, you can say, I'm exploring, like, what's next. And I'm curious about what it could be for me. Your brain can slowly get there if you guide it in that way. But I think sometimes we block ourselves from opportunities because of the thoughts and stories and narratives that we hold on to that are no longer true, or just are straight up not helpful to us.
I love a lot of the things that you say, and resonates with me a lot. First of all, the process that you use to help people get I'm going to use the word unstuck, because in a
Mm-hmm.
way you feel stuck in this like uncertainty moment of, I have all of these paths in front of me, or I have no paths in front of me, and I don't know like how to move forward. I
Yes.
love the character strengths. I use it myself as well. And uh, I was telling you before in the before we came on air, these cafecitos also turn into blogs. We post them in different places. I'll make sure that I tag, some of these, resources, because I think it's important. But I think I love what you're saying about the brains, about keeping us safe, because what it does is it's keeping us safe,
Yes.
right? The uncertainty, it could be bad for us. The uncertainty could be, you're going to walk into a cliff, and who knows, we might die from there.
Yes.
So our brain is just keeping us safe. And I love that analogy of shifting from, this situation that could be potentially bad to, hey, I'm just dipping my toes in the water, like just keeping it right. We're not going to completely plunge into it. We're just going to do a couple of things here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be feel a little bit less intimidating, less stressful, more comfortable, but stretching our boundaries of what's known into what's unknown. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's I love those things. So as you think about, and I think we could talk about this, for hours and hours on end, but we're coming to the end of it. So what would you suggest? This is a change is constant,
Mm.
which is not, it's not going away. It's staying here, which in a way is sort of what's the word like, it doesn't make any sense that we're now saying that change is constant, because
Yeah.
change is always change, but it's becoming the new reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is causing these inflection moments to even become more often for all of us, either because they just happened or because we're planning them. But the reality is that we need to learn how to become more comfortable with thinking that our career paths are going to go like this all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yeah.
So from your point of view, like, what practical advice do you have for our audience in order to feel hesitant in these moments, and how can they, navigate these process?
Yes. The first step in anything, and Eliana, you know this because you are a coach as well, is we have to be honest about where we are. And part of that is you have to be honest about, I call it seasons of life. You can call it stages of life, right? You have to be honest about the season of life you're in. If you are in a new role, you're going to have you have to be honest about that. Okay, I'm in a new role. I'm uncomfortable. Do I want change because I'm uncomfortable, or do I want change because this actually isn't working for me? Like, we have to be very clear about the season of life and career we're in. Some of us are new mothers, some of us are not. We have teenagers. That requires a different level of involvement from us. Do I want to change my career because I am distracting and avoiding things that I have to deal with at home? Like, what is the reason for what I'm doing, and what stage of life and career am I in? We have to be really clear about that, because for some people, a career transition actually would cause more stress than staying where they are and addressing the other things in their lives they need to address and they need to make better. Okay. So I think that's a very important place to start, is being honest about what season of life you're in and honest about how you feel in it. We are, I will say, as a first generation Latina, I have been taught through society's messages, through messages, that I can use work as a distraction. I can be busy as a distraction from what I really think about and feel about my life. So that's why number one is be honest. How do I feel about things? What makes me feel alive and joyful and excited outside of my job or inside of my job? Like, these are questions you can ask yourself, and you can journal these questions. Anyone can do that. What is working for me right now? How can I double down on that? What's not working for me right now? And then if something's not working for me right now, is that thing in my control? Because we want to be able to control the controllables, but let go of the rest because you can't control that, right? But if it's in my control, then what's one thing I can do to make that better?
Yeah.
Right. And then the other thing I find a lot is people have made decisions, but they're looking for permission. There's something about they're not sure. And then the uncertainty, the fear, our brain protecting us. And my question and their question they should ask themselves is, what is stopping me from actioning a decision that I've been grappling with? Right? What am I so worried about? Are those worries based on fact, or are those worries based on stories I've been telling myself or that someone else told me years ago that I'm still running on loops in my brain? What am I scared to lose? But then also ask yourself, what do I stand to gain? Right? These are things that if we ask ourselves honest and really powerful questions, the power is in the question we ask ourselves, because our brains will go to work to find the answer, right? And then if we can answer honestly, you can get more clarity to decide what you want to do next.
I love everything that you've said, and especially the the questions that will then turn into calls to action, right?
Yeah.
Clear, actionable. Okay, how do I start moving from there? And as long as you choose one, it doesn't have to be a big one. Sometimes we feel like because they're inflection points, it needs to be a massive thing. No. I love one of the things that you said earlier about just writing things down. Like that can be so powerful
Yes.
in itself as an action and as a next step. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. We'll definitely have to continue this conversation inside the hub, where I'm inviting everybody to join as part of United Latinas. We're a community. You don't have to go through this process on your own. It feels daunting, it's overwhelming, it's stressful, but you don't have to do it alone. We have powerful people that have been there, done that, coaches like Arivee, like myself, like many others in this community that can help us. So know that you have a safe space where you can come, you can share, you can cry. We'll hug each other virtually. We'll hold space for you, hold grace. There's a lot of changes happening. We're here for that's what this community is all about. So join. You have unitedlatinas.mn.co there to be able to connect with us, to connect with Arivee, to connect with myself, many other coaches. We're going to have to continue this conversation there, definitely, because I think there's a lot more that we can do as well. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And also check out our events on our website, unitedlatinas.com, or within the hub as well. We have a lot of events happening. We have, if you have a small business, we have small business growth, different workshops. If you want to, create a more well-being space for yourself and others, we have a workshop coming up with Stella Vidal on cultivating resilience. We have our traditional speaker circles, which happen every second Thursday of the month. So don't forget to sign up for that. And then we have our marvelous Maritza Coscarelli, who's going to show us how to become a paid professional speaker for those of us that want to go down that path. That's also happening on April, and many other things. But start by joining this community. We're here for you. Arivee, thank you so much for being with us. Any final words?
No, just thank you so much. And I just want to say that for everybody, please join United Latinas and attend the events. You can't move the needle unless you're willing to do something different. So this is a start to that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely look for a time to continue the conversation. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day wherever in the world you are. Thank you.
Thank you.